Tonight, a mum trying to set up her family's future and a trusted Australian bank, both scammed by a sophisticated gang, and it was so well executed.
Jacomi Dupree's had 2 teenagers to care for and a husband driving east from Perth. It was December, and the family was relocating to Melbourne. She and the children flew ahead. Zach Dupree's would follow by car with their belongings, a 3-hour journey out of the city before continuing across the country. He never arrived. On December 2nd, Zach was killed in a road accident. The life insurance payout that followed amounted to $760,000. For Jacomi, now a widow at middle age, the money represented more than savings. It was security for her children. It was the future Zach had been building with her. It was all that remained of decades of work, planning, and partnership. She did not want to spend it. She wanted to protect it. By April, 4 months after the accident, Jacomi began researching term deposit accounts. She was not looking for high-risk investments or complex financial products. She wanted stability, a fixed rate, a known return. She compared offerings from several institutions and found what appeared to be a competitive rate from Macquarie Bank, too. 5% for 1 year. She filled out an online application form. It asked for her name, contact details, and the amount she intended to deposit. The page confirmed her submission and informed her that Macquarie would be in touch soon. The interface looked professional. The language was formal. There was nothing to suggest anything irregular. The call came within days. The man on the other end introduced himself as Mark Dickinson. He spoke with a British accent, calm and articulate. He explained the application process step by step, outlined the terms of the deposit, and answered her questions with the kind of polish she had heard from customer service representatives at other banks. He did not rush her. He did not pressure her. He sounded, in every measurable way, like a banker. Jacomi was not careless. She searched for the name online. A LinkedIn profile appeared, listing a Mark Dickinson employed at Macquarie Bank. The profile included a professional photograph, a job title, and a work history. It was exactly what she expected to find. She did not know that the profile belonged to a real employee, but that the person she was speaking to was not him. What followed was a series of documents sent via email, a term deposit contract, signatures, logos, formatting that mirrored legitimate bank correspondence. The emails came from an address that appeared consistent with corporate communication. Every detail reinforced the illusion. For someone trained as an auditor, as Jacomi was, the paperwork seemed thorough and correct. On April 14th, she transferred $100,000 from her Commonwealth Bank account to the account number provided by the man calling himself Mark Dickinson. 7 days later, on April 21st, she transferred another $100,000. Between April 22nd and April 25th, she made daily payments, $100,000 from Commonwealth Bank and $40,000 from NAB. In total, $760,000 moved out of her accounts over 11 days.
I've been scammed out of $760,000.
The scam worked because it did not feel like a scam. There was no demand for immediate action, no threats, no alarm. The transfers were framed as routine steps in setting up a financial product she had researched and chosen herself. She believed she was moving her own money into her own term deposit. The idea that she was sending it to criminals did not register because every signal suggested otherwise. On the afternoon of April 25th, something shifted. Jacomi could not later pinpoint exactly what triggered the realization. Perhaps it was the absence of confirmation emails she expected to receive. Perhaps it was a detail in the last conversation that did not align with the others. Whatever the cause, the certainty she had felt began to crack. She called Macquarie Bank directly, using the number listed on their official website. The representative she spoke with had no record of her application.
In that moment, I knew. I started panicking. Oh my goodness.
There was no term deposit in her name. There was no Mark Dickinson handling her file. The account number she had been transferring money to did not belong to Macquarie. In that moment, she understood. The panic was immediate. Not because the money was gone, that much was already true, but because of what it meant. The calls, the emails, the contract, the LinkedIn profile, the calm British voice. All of it had been constructed. All of it had been false, and she had believed every part of it. Jacomi contacted Commonwealth Bank and NAB the same day. She filed reports. She provided transaction records, email threads, and account details. She also contacted AFECA, the Australian Financial Complaints Authority, in the hope that the funds could be traced and frozen before they moved offshore. Using her auditing background, she traced the path of the money herself. The funds had moved from her accounts to a payment service called Cuscal. From there, they passed through another service called Manuva and were eventually linked to Elbait, a cryptocurrency exchange. The use of cryptocurrency made recovery far more difficult. Once converted and transferred, the money could be withdrawn from ATMs anywhere in the world, laundered through a network of intermediaries known as money mules. Commonwealth Bank and NAB both confirmed that they were working to recover the funds, but their statements were cautious. The transactions had been authorized by Jacomi herself. From the bank's perspective, she had initiated the transfers. There had been no unauthorized access to her accounts, no suspicious login attempts, no red flags that would have triggered fraud detection systems. The scam had been designed to bypass those safeguards entirely. Macquarie Bank issued its own statement. The institution clarified that no genuine Macquarie accounts, websites, or employees had been involved. The scam had used the bank's name and branding without its knowledge. Macquarie reported the fraud to the Australian Federal Police and updated its website to warn other customers. The message was clear: Macquarie does not ask customers to transfer funds directly when opening a term deposit. The process involves a formal application and a direct debit from the customer's nominated account, not manual transfers to an external account number. The warning came too late for Jacomi. It also suggested she was not the only victim. Scammers had replicated the scheme with enough frequency that the bank felt obligated to issue a public alert. Legal experts later noted the complexity of her situation. In cases where victims authorized transactions themselves, believing them to be legitimate, the responsibility for loss is often unclear. Banks argue that they cannot reverse payments made with the customer's explicit approval. Victims argue that sophisticated impersonation should not absolve financial institutions of their duty to protect customers. Courts have been divided. Some jurisdictions hold banks liable if they fail to detect patterns consistent with fraud. Others place the burden on customers to verify the legitimacy of recipients before transferring funds. Jacomi's case did not resolve quickly. Months later, there was no confirmation that any of the $760,000 had been recovered. The investigation remained open, but the likelihood of retrieving the full amount diminished with each passing week. Her son, Herc, described the period as devastating, but also clarifying.
It's pretty devastating that I've fallen into this trap.
The family had lost not only the financial security Zach's life insurance was meant to provide, but also a measure of trust in systems they had relied on. Jacomi had done what she thought was responsible. She had researched options, verified details, and proceeded carefully. The failure was not hers alone. Cybercrime expert Nick Savates later explained that scams of this nature have surpassed the global illicit drug trade in annual revenue. The infrastructure is sophisticated, the execution is meticulous, and the criminals operate across borders with relative impunity. They study legitimate processes, replicate them with precision, and exploit the fact that most people expect financial institutions to be trustworthy. For Jacomi, the loss was permanent in more ways than one. The money was gone, likely converted and dispersed through channels designed to be untraceable. But the deeper damage was to her sense of security. She had survived the death of her husband, the upheaval of relocation, and the responsibility of raising 2 children alone. The scam did not just take money. It took the foundation she had been trying to rebuild. There is no resolution to offer, no recovered funds, no arrests, no closure. Only the knowledge that what happened to her could happen to anyone, and that the systems meant to prevent it are not always sufficient.
Recovery process is underway. We're going to stay on the case.